So step one, establish inclusion. So treat all students equitably. Notice that it doesn't say equally, it means equitably. What each student needs based on their specific circumstances. Invite them to point out behaviors or practices that discriminate. Emphasize the purpose of what is being learned and its relationship to the student's experience. Share the ownership of knowing with all students. Every student can participate, every student can teach a lesson. Collaborate, cooperate with students, encourage them to do the same, model this behavior for them. The class assumes a hopeful view of people and their capacity to change. So it's okay to make mistakes. As an educator, when I make a mistake, I'm going to point it out and use it as a teachable moment. So really, this is about starting day one, creating a classroom culture that's inclusive. So what kind of procedures and structures would take place in an inclusive classroom? Collaborative learning approaches, cooperative learning, writing groups, peer teaching, multidimensional sharing, focus groups, reframing. You can organize this through your ground rules in learning communities and cooperative-based groups. So a lot of these things are things that we know as educators, things that you may be completely aware of from different trainings or parts of pedagogy, but it's really finding a way to interweave them into the classroom. So again, that UDL design overarching, like how can I make students feel more comfortable to share? As an educator, you have to be ready to commit. So 100% day one, commit to knowing your students well, knowing them academically, socially, emotionally, learning about their families, their cultures, their interests. I know my first year teaching, I moved to Irving. I actually started teaching in Irving. And this was my first time in Dallas. It was my first time in the area. And I made sure that I spent a lot of time in the community that my students were a part of. I went to the Pizza Patron. I went to the Mucho Cana. Like I went and tried the food at the Fiesta. Like even before school started, I was like, I need to know like what are my students seeing on a daily basis? What kind of insight can I get into their lives? So ask questions, talk with parents, community members, and colleagues. Read books is so important because a lot of folks have been reaching out, especially during what's happening right now in our country, and people really want to learn more. I think step one is finding those researchers that are prominent in the field that have really done the work, and reading and finding out about it is the easiest way to go. And I'll help you guys with some books specifically about this. Watch movies, listen to music, make home visits, create opportunities for students to share and celebrate their family traditions and cultures. So commit fully to immersing yourself into this work, into creating a safe space, into being the person that your students can come to. Um, be ready to commit. I can think about a situation. I taught in primarily Hispanic schools. Most of the students were from Mexico or El Salvador. My first year teaching, and I remember one of my students saying, "You know, this is the first time I've had a Black teacher. What's it like? Like, what's it like to be Black?" I mean, they had so many questions, and being able to open up that space. Like, this is a safe space. You can ask me things like, do I know how to play basketball? Do I know how to rap? Like they really didn't know. And being open and not taking offense. I'm committed to my students. I'm committed to their growth in all aspects. And as a part of that, as an educator, I'm going to be open. Establishing an inclusive structure. So incorporate real life experiences or values of students into expectation lessons. Provide opportunities for students to articulate their expectations at home and to discuss similarities and differences. Provide materials for families so that they can define and teach behavior expectations in the home in ways that fit their needs. Let families know what your classroom expectations are so that they can support you in the ways that they deem appropriate. Focus on changing the system rather than the students. So you're not trying to make your students fit your classroom culture. You're not trying to make your students fit your classroom routines. You are changing the way that you do everything so that it fits all of your students, so that it's inclusive. Engage in explicit conversations around ethnicity, race, and effects of practices on all students. So being open again, like how I mentioned about my students wanting to ask me questions, being open to having those conversations. Examine expectations and rules for implicit bias to ensure that expectations are truly universally understood. So making sure that your expectations are clear and support all students.